Welcome to the Bag Maker's Workroom. I'm Chris with Simply Classic, and today's Thursday, July 16th, 2026. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We go live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't join live, you can always watch the recording at any time on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so that you are notified when I post a new video or when we go live. So I do want to say that I'm sure a lot of you have seen smoke and fire, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and I hope everyone is safe and it's not being too affected by any of that. We certainly, if you're in the line of danger, hope that you get out in time. So we have Sandra here. Good evening from stormy Northeast Texas. I was just with Sandra in Louisiana. It was a lot of fun. Dory says Colorado here. And then Karen says hi from Santa Clarita, California. So thank you so much for joining us. July is Leather Month, which means we're specifically talking about leather bag making all month long. On July 2nd, we talked about the ways real leather is different from faux leather. Last week was all about leather textures, dyes, and finishes. And today we're going to focus on veg-tan leather. So here is what we have planned. We're going to start out by going over what's new in the Simply Classic scoop. Then I'll show you some perfect pairings for our veg-tan leather. We'll talk about what veg-tan leather is and how it's used. We'll look at some designer bag inspiration, which is always fun. And then we'll feature our customers' bags and Artistry Avenue, my favorite part. We'll finally give away some patterns and do a Q&A at the end. So before we get started, please click the thumbs up button. It certainly helps people find us. And obviously we have a wealth of knowledge to share. So we want to make sure those people can find it. So find us. So we really do appreciate it. So we're going to start out with the Simply Classic scoop. And of course, this is where I tell you what is going on here at Simply Classic behind the scenes. And first thing is, I was in Louisiana last week. It was a pre-recorded episode, as you all know. And we were at A&A Sewing in Broussard, Louisiana, which is right outside Lafayette. It was amazing. We had a fabulous, fabulous time. So you can see a picture here of the classroom, and they had a great setup. We had amazing students. Got to spend some time with some really great customers. They had a retreat house, stayed there with Sandra Rapunt and Cheryl and a couple other people. I mean, it was just fantastic. It was just really a great time. It's always nice to get together with like-minded people, and we really had a lot of fun. We'll have more pictures for you next week, but this is certainly one here, and you can kind of see the setup. They were fantastic. A&A Sewing was fantastic. I'm sure maybe beginning next year we'll have to kind of see. Hopefully I'll be invited back. So we have more workshops coming up around the country, including a brand new one that just went on sale this week. So it's at Super Stitch in Erie, Pennsylvania, or right outside Erie, Pennsylvania. It'll be September 25th and 26th. I'll be teaching the Julie and the Simply Classic Clutch. We'll be doing the Julie in the Seafoam and Chestnut, and the Simply Classic Clutch will be in black. So, of course, you know about these others. I'll be at Cali Quilt Co. in California. Of course, I'll be at Sack Bag and Sew in California next month. Idaho is in September, and then also Super Stitches in September. And then October, we have Pins and Needles up in Ohio. And then at the very end of October, it hasn't gone on sale yet, I'll be at Mold Queen in Mesa, Arizona. And I'm sure that you'll be seeing those pop up soon. So we also have some new bag making kits available. So as you know, we typically don't sell kits. However, as we've been cutting kits for some of these classes, there have been a few extra that have been made. So we went ahead and put them on sale. They're very limited. Like, we only have 4 of each one of these. Okay. So if you're interested, go ahead and grab them. 2 are leather. So we have the lavender Simply Classic Clutch. Now that kit is pre-cut, pre-stabilized, pre-interfaced. If there's any place where double-sided tape needs to go, it's on there. You've got markings if there's any markings that you need. I mean, it's turnkey, okay? So that one there is a little more expensive than the black. The black we have available, those are just the materials, okay? Does not have any of the foam you need, does not have any of the fusible interfacing you need. The pieces are not cut, none of that. So it's a very basic kit. The other one we have is the Bircham. Now the Bircham is with purple faux ostrich. It too is pre-cut, pre-interfaced, pre-stabilized, pre-double-sided tape, pre-marked. I mean, you name it, it is done for you. So if you are interested in making a bag, not having to cut anything out, not having to worry about fusing any stabilizers or interfacing, the lavender clutch or the Bircham are for you. Okay. Again, we only have 4 of each one of these. And as you know, if we happen to have extra kits, we will certainly put them up. It's not going to be a regular thing for us. But anyway, they're available. Now, for each one of these, in order to help keep the cost reasonable, we have taken the patterns out because we know so many of you already have these patterns. So if by chance you don't have the pattern, you're going to have to add it to your cart. Okay. So just make sure you're aware of that. Pattern is not included. If you've made the Simply Classic Clutch before, why are we going to make you pay for the pattern again? We certainly don't want to do that. So to be fair, we've pulled the patterns out. If you need them, make sure you add them to your cart, and then you can either get the print pattern, okay, or you can get the PDF, whatever works best for you. Another thing we want to tell you about that we're actually pretty excited about is we are now offering bulk discounts on our hardware. So we know a lot of you make a lot of bags, but maybe you don't qualify for wholesale, a business, you just kind of, do it for family and friends. And, we know that things can get expensive. So what we've done is if you buy in lots of 12, you get discounts. So for instance, if you buy, and let's say you need 1/2-inch swivel clasps and you buy 12 packs, you get 10% off. If you buy 24 packs, you get 15% off. And if you buy 36 or more, you get 20% off. So it's not as deep as wholesale pricing, but it does help out. So if you are, need to grab some hardware, go ahead and buy in lots of 12 and it will save you a little money. Okay. It does only apply for hardware, does not apply to faux or to zippers or anything like that. It does apply to zipper pulls though. Okay. So before we move on, before we move on, I do want to tell you about 2 things that just happened. We put up, I want to say roughly 10 mystery boxes we've been cutting, and a lot of these are the new faux. So we have mystery boxes available. I think about 10 of them. We also have some of those handle bags available that I know a lot of you have been waiting for. So I think we have, again, about 10 of those. So if you are interested in grabbing one, make sure you go and get them. And of course, as we cut, we'll have more, but for right now, we are able to make about 10 of each. So before we move on, we need to pick our giveaway winner from the last 2 episodes because I was not here last week. And we, again, give away a PDF pattern to one person who watches live and one person who watches the replay. So let me go ahead and grab these 2. We're going to go to the overhead. And basically, we have 2, again, like I said. On July 2nd, we asked you, what is something you want to learn about leather bag making? Okay, so we have everybody's name here entered. And Serena 87. Oops, a little blurry. There we go. Her name's Rosie. She says, I want to learn how to finish edges. Well, good. We're going to actually show you a little bit of that tonight. And then the next one was on July 9th. We asked you, what was your favorite type of the new faux leather that we showed you? So, of course, we have all of our new faux leathers that we put up about a week ago. Those aged matte Crocs are amazing. Okay, and this is Delphina. Delphina says, I like the animal leopard faux leather. Yeah, that's a good one too. They all are really great. We're pretty excited about all of them. All right, so congratulations to both of you. Make sure that you email info@simplyclassic.net. If you can do that within the next 30 days, we will send you a PDF pattern of your choice. All right, so next we're going to talk about perfect pairings, and this is where we're going to pair some of our veg-tan, since veg-tan leather is a topic, with a matching thread. So the reason why I'm not saying lining is because working with veg-tan, lining is optional, let's say. And so if I were to line, I would probably line with another leather, a thinner leather. I'd probably just glue those two leather pieces together, not necessarily veg-tan. You can use chrome tan. So I'm going to show you this here. This is our navy hide. It is veg-tan, okay? It is bovine, basically cow. And you can see it's pretty oddly shaped, okay? It's a belly. And we would just pair this with our navy thread. Okay, simple enough. It works really great. And you can see here, this does have some flexibility to it, okay? It's not... it's a little stiffer than chrome tan. You can see here, I can't crunch it up like I do the chrome tan. It's got a little more stiffness to it, but I specifically had it split so that it was thin and we could use sewing machines on it. So it is about, 0.8 to 1 millimeter in thickness, and it is finished, okay? A lot of times when you get veg-tan, it's not finished and you have to finish it yourself. So this is finished. We have it in, I believe, 5 different colors. Black, probably black, red, like a burgundy, blue, camel. And you can see here, this is just half the hide. So if I undo this, you can see how long these hides are. Not super wide because they're bellies, but they're pretty long. Okay, so you can get a lot out of this. So make sure you check that out. Veg-tan bellies. Again, thin would go great with this Tech 70 thread. I would probably use a Tech 70 on it. I don't know that I would use a 45 on it. Okay. So now it's time for Sharpen Your Skills, and this is where we learn tips and tricks to help you become a better bag maker. And our theme today is veg-tan leather. So many of you know that most of the leather we carry on our website is chrome tan lambskin. But as you just saw, we do have a few veg-tan options. So I haven't really talked about how to use them, so that is what today is all about. So first, let's recap the differences between veg-tan and chrome tan leather. It all starts with the tanning process. So veg-tan has been around for thousands of years. It's the original method for making leather out of animal hides. There's a long history of leather tanning in countries like Morocco, and you can still find a lot of traditional tanneries there. So isn't this incredible what you see here? Look at all of these different dyes. These are all natural dyes. So after the animal hides are dehaired and prepped, they get soaked in a natural solution that's rich with chemical compounds called tannins. Most people associate tannins with wine, but they also can be found in many different plants. The tannins used for leather tanning mainly come from bark. It's pretty cool. So those natural tannins chemically bond with the collagen proteins in the hide. That actually transforms the structure of the hide and makes it naturally resistant to bacteria, interestingly enough. This process can take weeks or even months. Chrome tanning is a much newer process. It's been around for less than 200 years. And instead of natural materials, they use chromium salts. These are man-made chemical compounds. They work a lot like tannins by binding to the collagen in the hides, but the process is much faster, anywhere between a few hours to a few days. For that reason, most of the leather produced today is chrome tanned leather. That's also why chrome tan leather tends to cost less than veg tan. It's just faster and easier to produce. So these two processes, you can see here, we have a little chart here for you. It kind of produces different kinds of leather. So let's take a look at this chart. Veg-tan is usually stiffer, and it naturally develops the patina over time. Chrome tan is a little more pliable, and it does not patina. It maintains its color. It's also available in a wider variety of colors because it tends to take better to the synthetic dyes. Another difference is that veg-tan soaks up water very, very easily. It can be molded and tooled and stamped. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. But chrome tan leather cannot be tooled. It cannot be wet molded, okay? It can be stamped, but only with a lot of heat, and the results really are not as good. You can see that photo down there on the lower right. You can see as they tried to stamp this, how it kind of crinkled the leather up. That doesn't look very good. So next I want to show you some examples of chrome tan and veg tan leather so you can see the differences here in this chart. So we have photos of full grain and top grain leather. Veg tans on the left, chrome tans on the right, and these are all cow. Okay, these are all bovine. So if we compare the two sides, we can see that the veg tan leather is a little bit stiffer. You can just see how it's laying. And even though it's the same thickness, that's another thing, is that, you know, you can get thin veg tan just like the hide I just showed you, but it's still going to be stiffer. It's not going to be as soft. Now, not all chrome tan leathers are super soft either. I mean, it just depends on, you know, the hide and how it was tanned, but it's going to be very difficult to make veg tan leather super soft like you can make chrome tan. You have a better option or better chance of getting the chrome tan soft. So from what I understand, you can laser cut veg tan and not chrome. That's what I understand too. Because of the chemicals in the chrome tan, if you laser it, the chemicals are released and it's supposed to be bad for you, which makes sense. So whenever anybody asks me about leather, a lot of times when I go to shows and things, people will ask me if we carry veg tan. My answer for a long time was no, but of course now we do. But a lot of times what they want to do is get unfinished veg tan because they want to do their own you know, laser work, and then they want to go back and dye it and let the dye kind of pick up the grooves and the indentations. And so they're usually wanting a unfinished veg tan. So let's go back to this veg tan. Most veg tan leather is going to be grain leather. Now, if you remember, the grain, leather doesn't have grain, but it does, a leather hide has different layers. And we looked at a slide last week. Top grain is going to be one of the best, basically the very top of the hide, top grain, mid grain. It's less common to find veg tan leather in a genuine leather or suede. Remember, genuine leather is kind of the middle of the hide. Suede is the bottom of the hide. They do exist though. So here are some examples. The ones on the right are chrome tan, and those are actually our hides that you see. The ones on the left are veg tan equivalents. I think the chrome tan looks much nicer on these lightweight hides. The colors are very, you know, a lot more vibrant, and the finish is a lot more consistent. So if you're going to work with veg tan, I do recommend sticking to full grain or top grain, and that is the leather that we have. The veg tan leather we have is a I'm not sure if it's full grain or top grain. It's one of the two, but it is definitely one of those. So now let's talk about what you should know when you're working with veg tan leather, because of course that's what is used in traditional leather crafting. So today we're going to do kind of an introduction to the basic tools and techniques, and then next week I'll show you, I'll put some of them to use so you can see how they're used. I'm going to be demonstrating how to do a veg tan leather strap, and of course you can use your sewing machine with that. No hand stitching if you get thin enough veg tan. So because I don't hand stitch and mostly work with chrome tan, these are not tools that I will use all the time. I have some of them, don't really use them. So if you purchase one of our bag making kits or take a class with me, these are probably not tools that you're going to need. Also keep in mind that some of these tools can only be used on uncoated veg tan leather, unfinished leather. Our veg tan is coated, is finished. So don't use any tools that will impact the surface. That includes tooling, grooving, etc. So now let's take a look at these tools. So when I asked what skills you wanted to learn this month, skiving was the #1 request. Skiving is when you slice a layer off the wrong side of the leather to reduce the thickness and the bulk. You can do it by hand with a skiving knife, or you can use a bell skiver, which is on the left. Now, personally, I am not a big skiver. I do own a bell skiver, and I made a video a long time ago if you want to check that out. But I prefer leather that doesn't need to be skived, so I don't have to deal with skiving at all. That's why we carry lightweight leather, mostly lambskin, which does not need to be skived. Even our Veg-Tan is quite thin. I had them split it, so it is about between a 2 and a 3 ounce leather. So I'm not going to demonstrate skiving because honestly, it's a whole art in itself, and I'm not good at it. I really don't know how to do it very well, but I do want to answer some questions that you had. Sarah asked when skiving is necessary. At what thickness does the leather need to be skived? And I would say, you know, for me, for my machines, for what I use, anything over a 3 ounce for me is really too thick. And I'm thinking about putting seams together, and it just gets to a point where it is just too much for my machine. So I would say that you kind of need to test out your machine. If you've got a domestic or semi-industrial, you may not even be able to go that thick. You may have to stick with something more like 2 ounce. Okay. Now remember, our leather is thin enough that you do not need to skive it. Gloria asked, for leathers that require skiving, do you skive the entire piece or just the stitch area? So essentially what they call splitting is when you skive the entire piece. So the Veg-Tan hide I showed you a little earlier was split. When I say it was split, it means the entire hide, the whole part of the hide, the entire thing was thinned out. Okay, so it was thicker. They basically took the back off, and now it is thinner. It was split. When you skive, you typically just skive the edges so that you can turn over the top of the leather, and then you can go ahead and stitch. So that's a really good question. There is a difference between splitting and skiving. So let's take a look at this next tool. So this is a wing divider. It's essentially an old school compass with sharp points on the end of each leg. It can scratch into or even cut through leather. These are used to mark stitch lines, cut perfect lines, cut perfect circles, you know, all kinds of different things. And I do have I'm going to bring my tools over here. I do have a wing divider. I'm going to show you. It's really just a basic tool. It is very sharp, okay? Here, and a lot of times you'll see where you can unloosen and you open this up to whatever distance you want, okay? And then you tighten it and it stays that distance apart. And a lot of times you'll see in videos or things, people, and this is kind of wide, let me make it a little bit smaller, marking their stitch lines with these. Or something similar. So what they'll do is they'll run one edge along the side of the leather. This is a piece of Veg-Tan we have. This is actually our burgundy color. And they'll actually just do something like this, where they do this, and then there's a small mark in it. Now, again, this is finished. You know, you're probably not going to see it quite as easily as you would as unfinished, but you will be able to definitely see that. You can maybe see probably need to do it on the back. Let's do that. Oh, I'm digging into my table is what I'm doing. Okay, so you can see here the line there. And if you follow that exactly right, then that obviously will be a guideline for you. Okay, so that's what that is. Next thing is an edge creaser, and it's also known as an edge marking tool. And this allows you to create kind of an indentation line along the edge of your leather, like what you see here. It's used to create decorative lines and designs on the surface of Veg-Tan leather. I do not have a creaser. Next is an edge beveler, and beveling is the process of rounding the edges of your leather. So they aren't as stark as a right angle, okay? A lot of times this is called an edger. They come in different sizes and styles, and we have a couple of examples here. You can see that we've got a round cut beveler and a straight cut beveler. And you can see the differences are very slight, but they do make a difference. So I do have a beveler here. We're going to go again back to the overhead, and you can see the beveler has a teeny tiny, there you go, teeny tiny little groove in it. It's kind of hard to see. But what you would do, and again, I'm not very good at this stuff, y'all, so is you just run this right along the edge of your leather, and you see how it takes off. Okay, see how it's taking this off? Now, this is not something I'd want to use on this because our veg-tan is finished. Okay, but what it would do is give you a edge that is not so straight cut. So that's the beveler. Okay. Next is burnishing. Now, after beveling, the next step would be to sand the edges. And this is definitely, veg-tan, you want to use sandpaper. You don't want to use sandpaper usually on chrome tanned, okay? Doesn't work very well. On veg-tan, it works really well. So you can get sandpaper specifically designed for leather, of course, at any leather supply store. Now, edge finishing. Let's talk about this for just a minute. There are a few options for it. But one that's unique to veg-tan leather is burnishing. And burnishing is the process of buffing the edges of the leather to create a smooth finish. It compresses the leather fibers to seal the edge and give it a glossy look. And you can really see the difference in this before and after photo, okay? Now, to burnish your edges, you can use a wooden burnishing tool called a slicker. There's also motorized burnishes, but those are quite expensive. And the tool is, this little tool is very affordable. You can get them on, that's one of the things you can get on Amazon. Now, let's talk about, you've heard of Tokonole, I'm sure, and some people use water to burnish and some people use Tokonole. So let's talk about the difference. You know, it's not, honestly, I don't really think one is any better than the other. It's just kind of what you have available. If you don't have Tokonole available, just use water. It's really not a big deal. We're going to go to the overhead, and I'm going to kind of show you a little bit of burnishing. I actually think finishing the edges of veg-tan leather is easier than finishing chrome tan. Okay, so this is Tokonole. I'm sure you have seen, you know, this before if you've been researching leather or, you know, been involved in any kind of leather before. And what you would do is you would just take, and I usually just use my finger, and you're going to just dip it in the Tokonole and put it on the edge of the leather. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and dip this on. And I'm just going to rub it right along the edge of the leather. And you can see it darkens the leather. Okay. From there, what you're going to do is take the slicker, and this is a slicker, and you're going to find the groove that this fits in, and it's going to be the thin groove. And I'm not necessarily applying pressure. All I'm doing is providing heat, and I'm just going to kind of go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay. And what this is doing is compressing the fibers. And we're going to try to get in close on that. I know this is not, okay, and you can see here how it's different from here, right? Can you see how this looks a little darker? And it's definitely smoother. When I run my finger over it, it is much smoother than this here. And you can see how that, and that's really burnishing. That's it. I mean, it's super easy to do. And then, of course, if you have multiple layers, you would burnish, you know, the multiple layers together. Of course, these would be glued together. You certainly, you know, don't want to burnish anything that isn't glued or stitched together. You would put the water or Tokonole over it, and then you're just going to use your burnisher to kind of go back and forth. Okay. And that's what it is. Now, sometimes I have seen, and I have myself even used afterwards, a little bit of wax. You just take the wax and put it over the edge and smooth it out. The biggest difference you're going to do is feel it. Okay, you can really feel the difference. And when the leather's thicker, you can certainly see a difference there too. That's burnishing, super easy. Now, you can edge paint. However, it's not the same as painting on chrome tan. When you paint on chrome tan, I like to use a very kind of thin, I like to use uniters. But you need to understand that with the veg tan leather, again, it soaks up water, it soaks things up. So you're going to need to use a base that's very dense, and also not all veg tan will handle edge painting. So if you are want to try veg tan or you're interested in veg tan, you're going to definitely need to get one of these burnishing tools. Okay. So a stitch groover allows you to create a sort of channel or lane for your stitches. So when you stitch, you do it right in the groove and the thread is protected. So you see a photo of a stitch groover here. Next is a pricking iron. There's more than one thing here, okay? We're going to talk about pricking irons, and these are, of course, only tools that you would use if you were hand stitching. Pricking iron and stitching chisel are often used interchangeably, but technically there is a difference. A pricking iron is used for marking stitch holes, where a stitching chisel actually is used to punch the holes. You can see here what they look like. Okay, they usually look like a hand or a fork, fork with a bunch of prongs on them. Another option is called a stitching wheel, and this is where you can just roll this along your leather to mark your stitch hole placement. Now you can see where they're using this is on an unfinished piece of veg tan leather. When you've got finished veg tan like we have here, you're not really going to see it as much, and so it's not quite as effective. Next is a leather awl, and it is different from your standard awl, your standard sewing awl, because it's made to poke holes in stiff leather. So after you mark the stitch holes with your pricking iron or use a stitching wheel, you'll use the awl to actually make the holes itself. Okay, last thing we'll talk about is keeping your tools sharp. So real leather is less forgiving and certainly more expensive than faux, and you really don't want to damage your tools or your leather. So next I'm going to show you what I use to sharpen my tools, and I'm not very good at a lot of this, and especially not good at sharpening, but I do want to show you. It's called Jeweler's Rouge. So we're going to go back to the overhead. I got mine from Tandy Leather, okay, and this is called Jeweler's Rouge. Now it kind of looks like it's not really chalky, but it kind of looks like a big piece of chalk. But it's hard, okay? You can see how hard it is. And what you would do is you would take a piece of leather and you would put it over like a piece of wood. It's basically called a strop. You create this leather strop. So you really want a dense piece of leather. You want it attached to a wooden block. And then what you would do is rub this Jeweler's Rouge on the leather, okay? And you're going to kind of create it do this so that the deposits actually come on, get on the leather, and it kind of creates a very fine grit. Now, I probably would use a little bit thicker leather than this, something that's, this is pretty thin. It is veg tan. You do want to use veg tan. And then what you would do is pull your knife downwards on the strop. So let's say this is attached to a wooden block. You would basically just take your knife and just bring it down the strop, okay? And then now what that's going to do is sharpen your blade. All right? So Jeweler's Rouge is what this is called. And this is very, very cheap. I want to say it was like $3 or something. It's not very much. And you can see it would last a very long time. Okay. So that's how you sharpen tools. Now, again, veg tan leather is not necessarily my thing, as you know. I use more chrome tan, but this kind of gives you an overview of maybe some tools that you might want to explore when you work with veg tan leather. I've used some of them to varying degrees of success, but in the end, I always come back to chrome tan because that's what I enjoy the most. Of course, we always want to do what we enjoy. So that being said, I will be making a veg tan strap next week, and I'm going to show you the entire process. That way you can see if veg tan is something you want to try. I actually have, we're going to go back to the overhead for just a minute and just show you. This is one I had made a while ago. And you can see the color is maybe not as vibrant as some of the chrome tan colors that you have seen in the past. You know, it's kind of a muted brown and it looks the same on both sides. This, it is finished though, okay? So what I would do if I was going to finish the edges here, let's kind of look at this again and see if maybe you can see a difference, is I would put a little bit of this Tocano right on, kind of rub it in. Okay, wipe that off. And you can see first, well, maybe you can't. It does darken the leather. Okay. I'm going to try to zoom in on that. You can see that's wet there. Okay, there we go. And then I would take my burnisher and I would just kind of go back and forth like this to burnish those edges. And I think you can see, let's kind of give you a side-by-side comparison here of the difference there. Okay, so you can see this one's much darker. Of course, it is wet because we certainly just put some Tocano on it, but you can see, I think, how much smoother this is compared to this. You can't even see the division here where you can see the division here on this one. Okay. Does this seal the edges? Yes. Yes, it does. It certainly does. That's a good question. Yep. So again, you know, Veg-Tan, definitely a different type of sewing. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, all of this in Designer Bag Inspiration. And you can kind of see like when and where it's used. It's really interesting because very few luxury brands use Veg-Tan leather. Okay. So in our Designer Bag Inspiration, we're going to go over that. And usually they just do it on a very small portion of their bags or not at all. So the reasons are many. Okay, one thing is that most women who purchase a luxury bag don't want their leather to patina over time. They want it to look the same. They want it to look the same forever. Okay. Another reason is the sheer variety of the colors and textures available in chrome tan leather. Or, you know, again, Veg-Tan colors are not as vibrant. You can't really put a lot of color on. I mean, you can put color on Veg-Tan. It's just not going to look the same. Okay, it's just different. So again, to get those more vibrant colors and those textures, you're going to see that on chrome tan. And as I said earlier, Veg-Tan doesn't absorb, you know, dye the same way. So again, the options are more limited. And then the last reason is simply that chrome tan is more affordable. Okay, it's faster to produce, so it's easier for the designers to use chrome tan. So you're much more likely to find Veg-Tan bags from smaller independent designers and not luxury fashion houses. So let's take a look at a few examples. And as we go through these, you'll notice they're all very simple bags, okay? Again, a lot of times classic bags are very simple ones, but kind of what we would expect from Veg-Tan. So this is a bag that, again, is very simple. It is a Veg-Tan bag. They use something called vachetta leather, which is a variety of cowhide from Italy. Tends to be somewhat soft for Veg-Tan, and it has a very light coating to give it a high-end finish. Okay, so this is really a pretty bag, but you can see it's very simple. There's no texture to it. There's really, like the design is in the flap. Okay, otherwise it's pretty plain. This here is a bowler bag from Frank Clegg, and their Veg-Tan leather is tumbled in rotating drums that they fill with vegetable extracts, and then they finish it with a wax, and the wax is going to patina over time. But again, you see here a very simple bag, and honestly, a lot of these, you know, it was very difficult to find designer luxury bags in Veg-Tan. There's just not many out there. Carl Friedrich, this is the Ashby tote, and it is also from vachetta leather. It is very simple. Now this one's lined with nylon canvas. And so a lot of times they're not lined, but you can see this one here is. I don't know if you guys can hear the frog outside your door. He's chirping. We had a lot of rain today. So I don't know if it's a frog or a crow, but he's out there chirping. Okay, this, we're laughing about it because it seems so loud to us. This here is a Veg-Tanned bag, and it is by Jana Jansen. And this is an independent designer. It's structured, obviously, very simple, and it looks like the underside of the strap is not finished. Okay. Now, you can, I'm going to tell you, on Veg-Tanned leather, you can put some Tokeno on the back and use your slicker. And a lot of times that's what this part of the slicker is used for. It's not only just a hold, okay? And you can take and put some of the Tokeno or water, and you can actually just smooth it out. And it kind of finishes the inside of this automatically without having to do anything. It just, if there's any loose fibers, it gets them nice and flat. Again, compresses those fibers, okay? So that's an option. Now, Patricia Nash is one of the few bigger designers who actually uses Veg-Tanned leather. Not for all of her bags, but this is what she calls her vintage Veg-Tan, and it uses a staining technique that originated in the UK. It's hand-dyed to mimic a patina effect, which actually makes it patina even more intense as time goes on. Really interesting bag. I like that kind of little hidden pocket there, but for Patricia Nash, this is a very basic bag. Now, finally, we have this pleated tote, and this is from Mansur Gabriel, which is a pretty big luxury brand. They're known for using Veg-Tan, and the construction of this bag is very interesting. So you see here, it almost looks like they're accordion pleats. They're not stitched down. So one of the things you can do with Veg-Tan is you can groove it. And when you groove it, you can kind of form it and fold it in half. And that's what I'm thinking they did here. It's kind of hard to know, but my guess is that is what's kind of making it hold the pleat. So I know this wasn't a lot, but they were hard to find. So I hope this really gives you some inspiration and a better understanding of the types of bags that can be made with Veg-Tanned leather. It's kind of limited. Okay. So now it's time for Artistry Avenue, and this is where we choose 3 bags that were posted in the Simply Classic bag making community on Facebook, or that were emailed to info@simplyclassic.net. If we feature your bag, you can get a free PDF pattern of your choice. You have 30 days to email info@simplyclassic.net and let us know which pattern you'd like. So let's take a look at this week's artists. So Sharon made the Alley B using faux fur. Okay, this is a great example of using a longer faux fur for a bag. Isn't it cute? This is so unique, and I really love that she didn't cut that back. She just let it go. Very cute bag. She did do the Alley B hack on this too. Okay, so basically she did not put any grommets in there, which is a good call because that fur is a little long. I probably wouldn't have taken those grommets very well. Jeff made the Kaplan man bag hack. You can see it here. He used our aged brown faux, and this is, I believe, our camel suede. It's really beautiful. It came out really nice, and I believe he was part of the sew along, and it really came out great. This is just, you know, a different twist on the Kaplan. That's what we're all about. So Elizabeth made the Eva for her friend, and she added this adorable image of her friend's champion King Charles Spaniel. Now, I believe that she actually uses this to carry the grooming supplies for the dogs, and that way she can take them to shows. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what she does. Isn't that a great idea? I'll tell you, the Eva, and look at, she added a zipper pocket too. I think that's really great. The Eva is really a great bag. I've heard of people putting bowling shoes. I've heard of people using it for their sewing supplies. Of course, originally the idea was that it was for toiletries. I've heard, of course, people using it for grooming kits. I mean, yeah, the options are just, it goes as far as your imagination. So thank you to all of our featured artists for sharing your amazing makes. Again, don't forget to email info@simplyclassic.net within the next 30 days and let us know which pattern you would like. So before we move on to our Q&A, let's talk about our giveaways. We're giving away 2 PDF patterns of your choice. We'll choose 1 live stream winner and 1 from the chat, 1 replay winner from the comments. So if you're watching live on Thursday, here's how you're going to enter. All you have to do is type the word veg in the chat, just VEG, veg. Please only enter 1 time, and we're going to pick a random winner while we do our Q&A. This is open worldwide because it's a PDF pattern. So if you're watching the replay, you can also enter to win. Just leave a comment that includes 2 things. It's going to be your first name and your favorite bag from the designer bag inspiration today. Okay, we only showed you a few. So if you have basically till next Wednesday to enter, and we'll randomly choose a winner on next week's episode. So we had some questions last week. We can take a look at our questions, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have live. Okay, so the first one was from Karen, and she asked, does one type of leather wear better than others? So if you remember when we talked last week about the different layers of leather, you have top grain, you have mid grain, you have genuine leather, you have suede. Okay, those are the basics. And that comes from the different layers of the hide. So different layers of the skin. Top grain would be the top layer. Mid grain is the one right underneath your top layer. The genuine's coming from that middle layer. And then of course the suede's the underneath. That's the soft side. Typically, the higher the grain, the better it's going to wear. Okay. But also remember, the higher the grain, the less perfect it is. So you're going to see the brands, you're going to see the flea bites, you're going to see where they got caught in fences, you're going to see where they kicked each other, you're going to see all those things. So it's really going to depend on what your preference is. Okay, do you prefer a more perfect looking leather, or do you want a leather that maybe might last a little longer, wear a little better, but be less perfect? It's really kind of an oxymoron. I mean, you know, it's kind of opposites there, but that's how that works. Zinnia asked, what kind of finish do you use on your alligator bag after dyeing it? So she's talking specifically about this bag here. I took a class at the Southeast Leather Show, and we looked this up for you. It's called Nova. Okay, so the manufacturer is Kenda Farben, and the finishing cream is called Nova. And we just put it on with our hands. Okay, so you'll see, we're going to go to the overhead. It has a little bit of a sheen to it. It's not drastic, but you can see, you know, it's got a little shine to it. And we literally just took it in our hands, scooped it out of the bucket, and just kind of, you know, put it over and let it kind of soak in. And then we did that after we dyed it. And it really gives a beautiful, beautiful finish. Diane asked, where in Arizona did I take the class? So it was with the Southeast Leather Show, and they do travel around. So it's the Southwest Leather Workers Trade Show. They are, they go to Prescott, they go to, oh gosh, I'm trying to think, there's a big one, maybe it's either Montana or Wyoming, one of those places. I mean, they kind of travel around. There's 3 or 4 places that they go. And the man that I took the class with, his name was Broderick Vaughn. Okay. He's the alligator man that I told you about that actually is in Florida. And he is who they call when they have a nuisance alligator in a yard, in a pool, wherever it may be. And he goes out and he's able to basically get the alligator. If it's under 4 feet, he's got to re-release it. If it's over, and I think 4 feet, might be 6, he can basically exterminate the alligator. And then he uses every part of the alligator. So he'll use, of course, the skin for, you know, hides for tanning. The meat goes to restaurants. Even the guts and stuff go places, wherever they go. Okay. They go to feed whoever they feed or whatever they feed. But I really do like that the entire alligator is used. So Michelle said, this is not a question, but a tip about leather dye. EcoFlow is easy to use, but the colors aren't very vibrant. The dyes dry out and the leather makes it stiff. I've applied neat's foot oil before sealing it to make the leather more pliable. So that's a great tip. Okay, love that. Any of you have any other tips, make sure you share them in the Facebook group. We would love to hear what you have, especially if it comes to Veg-Tanned. So Rebecca wants to know more about stitch length when working with leather. So you really want to stick with the same kind of stitch length as working with faux leather. You're going to do anywhere between 5 and 6 stitches per inch. Now, depending on your machine, if your machine goes to 10, that's probably going to be between 5 and 6. If your machine goes to 5 or 6, it might be more of a 2 or 3. So what you can do is actually stitch out a couple inches, take your ruler, measure a 1-inch section, count the stitches, and see how many stitches you have. You don't want to go too close because you're cutting holes in the leather. Okay, that needle is just piercing that leather and cutting holes. And it would be, just like paper, put too many holes, it could rip. Certainly don't want that to happen. So you want to make sure you give yourself enough space between your stitches so that it doesn't perforate the leather. And then Dale asked, does the Aquilum 315 or other brands of water-based glue require a different application technique? And can water-based glues be used on all leathers? And the answer to that is yes. It does not require any different technique. When we provide Aquilum to our customers in the Banda bag, that's actually what we send them, is the Acrylum, and you apply it the same way. You have to make sure you put it on both sides, both pieces, okay, that you're wanting to glue together. Once it dries, stick it together and you're good to go. So Chantel asked if there are any Simply Classic patterns that can't be made from leather, and that's a really good question. I would say the answer to that's no, they all can be. However, you may have to make adjustments when you stitch, okay? So instead of putting seams right sides together and turning, you might have a few situations where you want to overlap, okay, seams. And if you do that, you need to take into account the seam allowance and take away some of that seam allowance. So, you just need to kind of be aware of what kind of leather you're using, how thick it is, because that's going to be a big part of it. If your leather is too thick or, too maybe not very, very soft, then you may have some issues with stitching it regardless of what pattern you use. Okay. And then Liz asks, when the leather's soft or thin, should you interface it? And if so, what kind? And yes, absolutely. And that's one of the things we teach in our online or virtual leather classes is how to apply the Salpa. We love Salpa. Salpa is a bonded leather. So essentially you're using a leather to stiffen leather. And that's the reason why, you don't have to skive our leathers, but you do have to do the opposite. You have to stiffen them. So think of it this way. If you have a leather that's thick enough, okay, you don't have to put any kind of Salpa or any kind of stiffener on it because it can stand up by itself. However, you need to skive the edges so that you can stitch it. With our leather, you don't need to skive the edges, but you do need to stiffen it so that it'll stand up. Okay, just a different animal. All right, let's see if we have any questions live. So Brooke says, what do you recommend to make chrome tan leather water resistant? So our chrome tan leather is already water resistant because it's a genuine leather and it has that finish on it, okay? Even this veg-tan leather that I showed you a little earlier has a finish on it. So if it already has that finish on it, you really don't need to do anything different, okay? If you have an unfinished leather, then what you're going to want to do is finish it and then apply some kind of finish like what I showed you here on this bag, and that will help you make it a lot more water resistant. If you have a piece of veg tan leather or a chrome tan, doesn't really matter, and it's unfinished, and you bring it out in the weather and it gets wet, it's going to stain and you're going to have some problems with it. So Liz says, what pattern is the bag you did in Arizona? It was just it's just like a pattern he had. It was just an alligator. He cut the pieces. And honestly, it's kind of it's very, very basic. I'm going to go to the overhead for just a minute. It was basically 3 pieces, I guess. He had one piece. It was this entire piece. Okay. Imagine that laying flat. And then he had 2 little gussets and a handle. And that was it. Okay. That's the whole bag. Now, this is a really good example of lining leather. So what we did is we glued, alligator was veg tan, this is chrome tan. And we actually glued the chrome tan to the wrong side of the veg tan. And then we went ahead and cut out the pattern, okay? And then I do have some some edge paint on here. Same thing here. We glued on the handle. We have one side as the alligator and then the wrong side as a lining. So, and I mean, this bag just has a snap and that's it. I mean, there's really not much to this bag. It's very, very simple. No pockets, nothing. But it is cute. Okay, let's see what else we have. Norma says, can I use foam? Yes, that's a really great question. So okay, with Veg-Tan, it's a little different. You're really not going to want to quilt Veg-Tan. But if you have some of our Chrome Tan, I think it is absolutely gorgeous quilted. Actually, we're posting a video. This is the Leah I did, okay? Just posted this video on YouTube. Once we get all of our little pictures done and stuff, we'll go ahead and put it live. It'll probably be live sometime tomorrow. This is real leather. And I went ahead and did this bag on purpose during leather month so you could see me make a leather bag. Now, this is a hack. It has we're going to go to the overhead. It has a pocket here. Let me turn it this way from my computer. Okay. And I actually left the zipper placket off because I didn't want to have to add. This is the pattern exactly the way it is without the zipper placket. But I used foam in this because I wanted to quilt it. And the foam and quilting leather is beautiful on Chrome Tan. Okay, this is the Chrome Tan. This is the color steel blue, I believe. And then cement is what the accents are. And then I used a midnight gray text 70 thread. Okay, and it really came out amazing. So yes, you can use foam, and if you're going to use foam and you're using Chrome Tan and you're using something solid like this, I highly encourage you to think about quilting it because it's just beautiful and it feels so nice. Okay, another thing is our clutches, our clutch kits are also quilted. So if you buy one of those clutch kits that we talked about, and actually if you buy the lavender one, the foam's already even on there for you. So you can go ahead and quilt that. Karen says, what edge paint did you say you used? For the Chrome Tan leather, I use either Vernus or Uniter's edge paint. You can find it at Rocky Mountain Leather. The key is the base coat. Okay, so for the base coat, I use Uniter's base coat. I do not use Ghirardini. I use that on my faux leather, so it's a little bit different. The base coat's different. And, you know, it's really the same thing with the Veg-Tan. Like the base coats are all different. Paints, about all the same. Now, I like the Vernus and the Uniters because they're you can heat them. So you can take like I have this little tiny iron. Okay, the iron itself, the head of it's probably like about that big, and you can heat it up, and then you can put it right along the edge, and it kind of melts the paint a little bit. If you can just smooth it out, works great. So that's why I like to use those paints. So Janet says, I have old pleather, okay? Oh, an old pleater. I'm sorry. You have an old pleater. Can this be used on any of the leathers you talked about tonight? You know what? I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. That's a good question. Is it I don't know if I've ever even seen a leather pleater. I'm assuming it's specifically a leather pleater? If anybody knows the answer to that, please answer, because I am not 100% sure. I've never used one, and I'm not really even sure what the leather pleater would be. So please, and you can actually post that to Janet in the Facebook group, and somebody might be able to help you there too. You stumped the professor. How about that? So Karen said, did you make your own piping on the bag you just showed? Yes, I did. I did. And I did not show how to do the piping. Basically, where I start the video, I'm really wanting to show the hack, which is the computer pocket. So what I did is I quilted it ahead of time. So you didn't have to sit there, watch. I mean, stitching straight lines, you know, it's kind of boring. So I did quilt it, and I put the piping on. So when I did the piping, what I did, let's just say this is a long piece of leather. I put glue all over, and I like the barge. So I put barge. And then I took my piece of piping and I just laid it right in the center. And once it dried, I just folded it in half and it stuck together. And then I was able to just stitch it in. So no pre-sewing needed when you use piping and leather. Now, I did use my industrial machine because I do get to a point where I'm doing several layers. I've got basically 4 layers of leather here because I've got piping, 2 layers of piping, I've got a front, I've got a side. So, I've got some layers. So I don't know that a domestic machine, like a semi-industrial machine, would do this, just because now you're getting kind of thick there. Okay, you see the piping does not go all the way up to the top. That's part of the pattern. And one thing, when this video comes out, you need to watch. If you don't have to watch the whole thing, but if you go to the end, my lining was way too big. I don't know what I did. My lining was way too big. I put it in. I did drop-in lining. I put it in, and the lining was sticking up like an inch. So I went through and I just cut it off. And if we go to the overhead here, you're going to see, and I think you can see, and Taylor, if you'll just zoom right in here, you'll see that my main part of my back's folded over and the lining is raw. Okay, so this right here is the lining edge, and I edge painted it. So you'll see that sometime in designer bags. You'll see where the main part of the bag, the front of the bag, is folded for that nice edge, and the lining is not. Cuts out bulk, which is fantastic, but it was a really great solution for me when I got to the end and it didn't fit. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? And that's the reason why my upper lining is so small here, is because I had to do something to make it work. So even if you've seen the Leah and you don't really want to watch it again, at least go and watch that part because it's kind of cool. Okay. Let's see if we have any other questions. Diane says, what brand of foam do you use? Okay, so full disclosure, in that I used By Annie. However, typically I would go to Rocky Mountain Leather and I would get their memory foam. Specifically, great for leather. It is super, super cushy. I mean, just like when you get a good pair of slippers and you push on it, or a pillow and you push on it and it stays indented and then it slowly pops up. That's really my favorite. I just couldn't get it and I couldn't get it quick enough. So I just used some anti-soft and stable, and I used some 505 spray, sprayed the foam and then put it on the back of the leather. Don't spray the leather. Okay, so spray the foam, put it on the back of the leather. And then Sonia says, Chris, when your travel slows down, can you please do another Nina class? Yes, we actually want to do more Nina classes. We want to do more Lacey classes. We want to do more bandit classes. I actually have another one in progress. We can't get the Salpa right now. That's what's causing us to not give classes right now, is we cannot do the Salpa, but we can't find the Salpa. Rocky Mountain Leather is the main supplier of Salpa, and they've been sold out for months. Okay, so as soon as we can get our hands on some Salpa, we will definitely be putting more classes up, because I can even do those in between traveling. If I'm gone, I can certainly head back to the hotel or something at night and do the Zooms there. So I don't have any problem with that, and I'd be happy to do that. We would love to put more up, so just kind of bear with us, and hopefully we'll get that done sooner than later. Okay. So let's see. I think we have a winner. Karen. Oh, Karen, congratulations. So I know you've asked a lot of questions, so that's fantastic. I'm so glad. You have won. So please email info@simplyclassic.net within the next 24 hours to let us know which PDF pattern you like, and we will go ahead and send it to you. Now, before we leave, I want to show you one thing. Let's go to the overhead for just a minute. I just want to show this to you. Hopefully you can see this. I'm going to have Taylor zoom in. And now that this is kind of dried, you can see these two edges. So I would probably, work a little bit harder on this one here, as far as, you saw I did my slicker really quick for you. Didn't spend a lot of time with it, but the more you slick that down, the better it is. And look at those two edges and how different they are. And especially if you take some beeswax and put it over this, that's really going to make it nice. Okay. So now that that's kind of dried, you can see the difference there. And it really looks good. Okay, just had to add that in. So thank you so much for joining for the Bag Maker's Workroom. Make sure you join us next week, which is the 23rd. Wow. 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to show you how to make a veg-tan strap. So don't forget to submit your Simply Classic makes by posting them in the Facebook group or emailing info@simplyclassic.net. Please remember to click the thumbs up button on the way out. And until next time, everybody, happy sewing.